Imagine the perfect customer. Imagine you start your pitch and rapport is fantastic. Imagine you go through your pitch and the engagement is exactly where you need it to be. Imagine they're completely compliant and they really show interest in every single thing you have to say. Everything they do is a big old green flag. They are a sale. And you get right to the end of the sale and you get to the close and they say, oh no, I certainly can't do that. It is the most frustrating thing that can possibly happen in sales. Because as salespeople, what we need to do is value our most precious resource, time. We don't want to be wasting time with people who aren't going to sign up or purchase our product, with people who are going to reflect our business incorrectly, or really, we don't want to be missing out opportunities with which that we can gather the information we need in order to make a sale complete. Qualifying is one of the most important skills that you can develop as a great seller moving into your career. In order to qualify, you need to know, are they suitable? Are they interested? Can I get information from them that will help with the sale? And can I predict anything important throughout the sale? If you can put together those pieces to the puzzle, you will have not only a better sales record, but you'll have a drastically better customer response, meaning that the feedback that you or your company receive will be great as well. This can lead to more business, it can lead to promotions, it can lead to all sorts of opportunities. So let's dig into qualifying. The first thing that we want to be qualifying with our customers is the suitability for them to purchase our product or service. We want to make sure that they're the right kind of person and that we're going to be serving them. So the first thing that we want to look at when it comes to qualifying suitability is qualifying, do they need it? Do they really need it? Remember, the definition of sales is not making someone do something or getting someone to buy something. The definition of real sales that generates continual business, gives your brand a great reputation, and keeps them coming back for more is that they have a need, you help them identify that need, and then you help them solve that need. Sales is a benevolent process and we need to treat it as such. So the first thing that we want to be identifying right off the bat is, does this customer actually have a need for our product? There's all sorts of things where you'll see people selling things to people where they don't actually need it. You know, the old snake oil salesman. It's not what this industry needs moving forward. So the real question is, let's say you're selling a car. Well, do they need a car? Chances are if they've come to the lot, they probably do, right? But let's say you're selling something like energy plans, where you're helping people get discounts on their energy bill, right? Well, if a customer has solar, or let's say a customer already has one of the cheaper deals on the market, yes, you may line your pocket by signing them up or getting them to buy. But really, do they need what you're selling? Because at the end of the day, if you're selling people things that they don't need constantly, the person who really suffers the most is you. You'll find if you have any shred of integrity, you're going to be drained day in and day out by not serving people and not giving and contributing to society. I know that sounds cheesy and it sounds airy-fairy, but understanding when you have a real purpose behind what you do and you really believe in what you do, that's what enables you to keep pushing through those difficult times. If you're selling something you don't believe in and you're selling things to people who don't need them, the only thing you're going to end up is burnt out. The next part of suitability, where we're looking at really qualifying the suitability of a customer, is can they afford it? I know there's lots of people that will say they can't afford something, but what you're looking for when you're seeing if someone can really afford a plan, especially if it's an ongoing subscription or something of that nature, you want to make sure that they will have money in their bank account. Now, when we talk about the kind of questions that we need to ask a customer as to whether they can afford it or not, it's simple. Hey, are you working full time? Do you have much dispensable income? Is this going to be a big hit for you? Or let's say if it's time frame based, if you want someone to stay on that subscription for 2 years, a really good question like, hey, if your situation weren't to change, do you think you'd be able to stay on for 2 years or more? These kinds of questions that you can ask, you're not putting in their hands to see if they can afford it, you're putting it in your hands. When a customer gives you an objection like, oh, I'm not sure I can afford it, chances are they're full of it, right? But if you're in charge and you're in a position where you can be turning people down, that's when you know you're on top of your game. When qualifying for suitability, we want to make sure that the customers that we're speaking to fit the criteria of what we're looking for. We don't want to do that at the end where we've wasted our time. We want to be able to do that right up front. The upside is when you're qualifying a customer, if you're showing that you're in a position where you're looking to turn someone down based on criteria, what does that increase? That's right, indifference. It makes you look like you want the sale less, which naturally makes the sale more likely to happen. So when you're qualifying things like age, for instance, if there's a certain bracket that your brand or product likes to have customers in, or geography, or employment, or all sorts of different things that you can look for, the best time to do that is as early as possible once you've established a good rapport with that customer. So for instance, let's say you've started right away, but let's say your customers are meant to be between the ages of 25 and 75. Well, right off the bat, let's say you're speaking to someone who's a bit young, you'll say, hey, how are you doing today? And they go, yeah, you build your general rapport and you say, awesome. Now, just out of curiosity, and I hope it doesn't sound rude, the age range that we're looking to work with is between about 25 and 75. Do you fit that criteria? Now, whether someone's too young or too old, it's very unlikely that they're actually going to find that offensive, especially if you've given them a reason why. Anytime you give someone a reason why, it takes that onus of responsibility off of you and onto the criteria that they're trying to protect. So qualifying for the criteria that you're actually looking to do is really, really powerful, not only for saving your time, but it also adds indifference to your sale, which makes your sale more likely to go through. Another criteria that's really helpful to qualify with customers for their suitability is time. When are they willing to make a purchase decision? When I was in corporate clients, working in account management, in all sorts of different areas in the business arena, I always had a rule of 3. 1/3 of customers were ready to buy right now. 1/3 of customers were ready to buy later, and 1/3 of customers wouldn't get around to buying. The worst thing that salespeople do, however, is they really like to build up what they call a warm leads list. The problem with that is, have you ever used a water pump in a farm, or at least seen them, right? You pump and pump and pump and pump and pump, and then eventually, after a long time, water starts coming out. The exciting part about that is once it's created that vacuum, water keeps coming out without you having to pump. This is what a lead generation stack will look like. Once you've gathered all these leads, all of a sudden you don't have to lead generate anymore. And so people feast off these warm leads, but yet once they run dry, once that well starts running dry, that water pump starts running dry, it takes a really, really long time to keep pumping those leads. So you've got to make sure that you're constantly in a state of lead generation, at least time boxing. Let's say every Monday and every Tuesday, I spend that whole day calling 200 cold leads. It's definitely not every salesperson's favorite part of the job, but it's a guaranteed way to keep hitting your targets every single time. Now, how does that affect qualifying? Well, when you're qualifying, you want to know when a customer is willing to make a purchase decision. And you can ask that generally in the middle to the end of your pitch. Once you've really shown, once you've been able to test how much interest they have, which we'll cover in the next set of videos, you're going to be able to get an idea of roughly when they want it. And it's very, very simple. You can easily ask, roughly when would you be looking at employing something like this? Once you ask the customer and they give you a solid date, you will have a great idea as to which of the 3 headings that they're going to fall under. And if they're ready to buy now, close the living daylights out of them. That's when you really want to make sure your objection handling is on point. Now, if they want to buy later, if they're going to be in a position in, say, 6 months, nurture the relationship. Don't just leave them and call them in 6 months. Make sure you're sending them emails. Give them education. Teach them things that they wouldn't know otherwise. Make them really look forward to when you're in contact with them. Don't just be an annoying dweeb. And if they're not someone who's ever really going to buy, which generally means they're going to fall into that middle category of buy later, at the very least, you're understanding how many more leads you're going to need to generate in order to succeed long term. So qualifying time is a really, really useful way to make sure that your water pump doesn't run dry, and it's a good kick in the butt to make sure that you're generating leads the way you're meant to. Qualifying suitability is really about looking for red flags. Not only does that stave off any disappointment if you think you've got green flags, but when you're actually actively looking for the things that can go awry, a customer can't genuinely afford it. They genuinely don't need it. They don't meet the criteria that you need, or they're not ready to make a purchase decision for quite some time. Being able to find those red flags early, it doesn't just serve you and your time and your likelihood of conversion, it also serves your business. Integrity is one of the most important things that you can have in sales. Learning to look for red flags It's not short-term thinking. Any loser can put people through where they shouldn't be signed up to something, they shouldn't be purchasing something. The best salespeople out there are the ones who play the long game. The ones who know that having customers who rave about what you do, who actually are served by what you do, and want to keep coming back or referring other people, that's how the best salespeople make their living. So understanding that coming from a place of integrity where you're genuinely actively looking to serve people's needs, it's not just going to help you, it's going to help your business, it's going to help the customers, and it's going to help the whole industry of sales. Harvard University denies 50,000 people a year. And that's just the people who actually have the guts to apply for Harvard. And they're widely considered the best. As a great seller, you should have that same mentality. The more people you're turning down, the more quality customers you're going to be getting, the more quality sales you're going to be making, and the better future you're going to have.